Take good trouble.
Councilwoman Goldberg, just want to make sure you could hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Nice. We could hear her all good. Right, Mike? You could hear her okay? We're going to be starting in just a couple minutes, Councilwoman.
Thanks.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
All right. Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Clerk, we have a quorum and call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. Please call the roll.
Councilman Schwartz, Councilwoman Belcher,
Here.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Here.
Councilwoman Organ,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Katz, Deputy Mayor G,
Here.
Mayor Pagan.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by resolution number 299-2023, sending a copy to the newspapers officially designated for 2024 by way of resolution number 2-2024, filing a copy in the Township Clerk's office and posting on the municipal building bulletin board, and the mayor hereby directs that this statement be included in the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good evening and welcome everyone to tonight's council budget meeting. Township administration present at tonight's meeting are Dean Kaczynski, our township manager, Doug Roussillon, our township clerk, Thomas Rowe, our deputy township manager, Scott Salmon, our township attorney, and Adeline Finkler with the MIS department. For the public's information, we are currently holding a hybrid format meeting. We have people in person and on Zoom. If our Wi-Fi at the municipal building has an issue where the Zoom meeting drops, we will aim to retrieve the connection and restart the meeting. The next televised regular council meeting will take place on April 2nd, and it begins at 6:30 p.m. for closed session, with the public portion of the meeting beginning at 8 p.m. March 28th is a budget meeting that begins at 7 p.m. There will be an American Legion Drive public update at the Rhoda Community Center on March 27th at 7 p.m. It will be broadcasted on Zoom, but participation is in person only. Town Hall will be closed on Friday, March 29th, in observance of Good Friday. Council did not meet in closed session earlier this evening. And our first order of business is good and welfare. And I want to remind residents that the speaking limit is 3 minutes per person. If you are on Zoom, please list your first name and your last name so that our clerk can call on you. Also, please turn your camera on when speaking if possible. And if you are in chambers with us today in person, please also give us your first name and your last name for the record. Thank you. Who would like to start us off, Mim?
Community discussion, growth, personal and professional development. It offers programs that teach, entertain, inform, and challenge. It reaches out to all constituencies within the town and invites all people to join, to be welcomed, to participate actively. Libraries are often taken for granted until they aren't there. I have said this before and I'll say it again. Open, free, public libraries are the last bastion protecting us from repression. A well-funded library enhances the community in which it exists, makes that community more attractive to potential residents. We are doing remarkable programs, are open 7 days a week, and haven't had a significant upgrade in years. We here in Teaneck are proud of our library, the most active one in Bergen County, despite our too small and dilapidated physical plant. The people of Teaneck need this library budget to pass, need the impending refurbishment, and look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silverberg. Someone in Zoom, Doug?
I have no hands right now, Mayor.
Ma'am?
Christina Markinson. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and Township Manager. I'm here again representing the Garden Club and the Greenhouse. The year went very fast. Last year, we were here to ask for a new roof, which you approved, and we are very thankful for it. But then we realized the township engineers decided the structure of the building was not sound enough to put a new roof on. So therefore, what can we do? We need a new greenhouse. I realize your budget committee will get lots of requests for funding this project and that project. But I like to point out our garden club and the greenhouse, all the activities is an important hub for our community. We provide education for school children. We teach them to seed, divide, and grow plants. And then for the middle school children and teenagers, we have a garden plot, and all summer long, they grow and plant their own vegetables. So, and in addition to that, we seniors and other gardeners, we meet in the greenhouse and we can plant, and we provide plans for the plant sale once a year, and our loyal customers are really waiting for it because our prices are good and the quality is good. So, you see, we provide many different good things for the community, and we are hoping that you will consider funding this greenhouse. I realize it's a big amount, and maybe it can be spread over 2 years, maybe, or several years. I realize it's a big amount to get everything in 1 year. It would mean we would have to wait a little bit longer, but in the end, it's worth it. So I really thank you from our hearts that you will consider funding this, and we thank you for it very much, and thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Powers?
I am Chuck Powers, Teaneck. I don't think that I'm telling anybody anything that in saying that the town is pretty deeply split right now. We really need a project around which we can take some of that diversity and go to work together to solve a major problem. The major problem identified in the 22 election was issues associated with development. And the answer that this body, along with the planning board, agreed was that we needed a new master plan. And I remember 17 years ago, none of you here were there for the long nights we spent in the Teaneck auditorium working on the 2007 master plan. We had a kind of problem because we had a planner who was about ready to lose their job because of pay-to-play questions. But we actually, as a town, figured out how to come up with the goals and objectives that fed into the rest of that amazing document. But that's 17 years ago, not 10. And so now we're doing it again. And I'd like to read to you from 4055D 28 about the master plan preparation, contents and modifications, which says that the planning board will propose and after public hearing, adopt or amend the master plan. It goes on to specify the 2 required elements and the 12 possible elements. Why is it then that it has been since October 5 that the public has heard word 1 about what we said a year ago we were going to work on? Places where we are getting information, believe it or not, is from not a body of the planning board, but this in the minutes, the March 1 minutes of the zoning subcommittee. Master plan update. Master plan to be completed by the planner in mid-March. I understand that there is a document that some people have as of 2 days ago and sent to the committee, the steering committee. Wait a minute. I just read you that that's the prerogative of the planning board. They're going to send it to the committee. I believe they have sent it to the committee. And then, look at this, sent to the committee. And it turns out, and I've reviewed very carefully every minute of every council and planning board meeting, there has never been an authorization of that steering committee. It's time for the planning board to take it over. And I'm sorry that the zoning subcommittee has taken on the job of scheduling for the planning board what is their responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in chambers? Ms. Lewis?
Lillian Lewis. I'm asking or requesting that there be money in the budget, in the police budget, for traffic on North Street. The cars, I wrote quite a number of emails to the manager regarding this. The cars are rushing down from Stop and Shop, going down the decline. They stop further up. Then when they get to Catalpa, they rush from Catalpa to River Road on North Street. There are a number of school children living on North Street, and I'm requesting 4 sets of rumble bumpers, what do we call those things? Rumble strips, and probably some signs saying school children. So slow down, something like that. But, you know, it's a matter of life and death as far as I'm concerned. And I do have 3 grandchildren on that street. All right, so I appreciate it. Some money in the budget somewhere. Thank you.
Anyone else in chambers? Anybody on Zoom, Doug? Going once, going twice in chambers, sold. Good and welfare is closed. Ms. Belcher, would you like to start us off?
I just want to simply say that I hear, all the residents coming out and speaking in promoting and support of different budgets. One of the things I kind of I view budget season as is that it kind of reflects a little bit about values, even when we speak of our personal budget. If you look at the way people spend their money, it speaks to what's important to them. So my only hope in this process, this budget season, is that our final product, the budget, really is reflective of the values of our community and what things we hold most dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belcher. Ms. Organ?
So Sandy, I agree about the library, listening to the reports and listening to how many people walk through the doors. And I look forward to our finished product and remind the public again that it will be closed for a while, but it will be a better product after that. Ms. Martinson, there was such a sigh, a sad sigh that went through the room when Dean told us that the building wouldn't support the new roof that we were so happy to approve for you last year. And I do hope that something can be worked out with the engineer. We do want you to continue it. We all were introduced to the Garden Club last year and would be happy for you. Dr. Powers, nice to see you back and doing well. And Ms. Lewis, I'm sure traffic, I'm sure traffic will take a look at that street, and hopefully we can get your report.
Thank you. Ms. Goldberg, do you have anything you want to say?
I just want to address Ms. Lewis because I know kind of also what Councilwoman Oregon said about the traffic studies and everything. And tonight is also police, and I did actually plan on asking about some of the traffic enforcement tonight too. So I'm glad that you raised that. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goldberg. Deputy Mayor G.
I just wanted to thank everyone who spoke. I'm also passionate about both the Garden Club and the library and safety. And so to the extent that we can incorporate all these things in the budget, I will fully support that if we can make it work.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Silberg, for always fighting for our library. We love our library and we'll always support our library. Ms. Mockinson, we thank you as well for fighting for our Garden Club. We still support the Garden Club, and I'm going to ask our manager to talk about that briefly, just so that everyone knows where we are with that. Thank you, Dr. Powers, for talking about our master plan, which is almost done. And thank you, Ms. Lewis, for talking about speeding on North Street, because I live there as well and see the speeding too. So I'm going to ask our manager to talk briefly about that process as well, and whether we need a traffic study there first, or if there's been a traffic study done there in the past few years, just to give us any information on what could possibly be done. See nobody else. Mr. Manager, is there anything you would like to say, sir?
With the speed study on North Street, I'll let the chief know he's sitting here tonight, so take that as your formal notice, chief. But what we do is we want data. We want to look at the data, so we'll do the speed study.
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I remember about a year ago, someone asked about Elm, and we had
Mhm.
done one within the past 2 or 3 years, and there wasn't anything warranted for
Right.
doing there, so.
So, the data has to support some of the changes we make. If the data comes back with North Street that there is a speeding issue, we have some resources at our disposal that would be traffic calming, striping, maybe narrowing of streets with the striping, some thermal plastic rumble strips. Could be a variety of things that we can look at. So I just want to see the data first and see when was the last time we did a traffic study on North Street. Of course, that's also followed up by traffic enforcement. So we'll take a look at that. I'm sure the chief will send that to the Traffic Bureau tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And our next order of business is budget discussion. So we will turn it over to you, Mr. Manager.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mayor. So the first department we have up tonight is the Police Department. Here from the Police Department is Chief McGurr and Captain Scott Tesser. So front and center, gentlemen. So for your budget book purposes, page 59 of the budget book covers the police account, and that's budget number 240. And before we begin, I'm going to say these operation budgets are not fat with things that the police department does not need. For a police department our size, the operations budget is coming in at $329,364,000. That's only a 0.64% increase, from last year. So the chief did an excellent job with, keeping costs pretty much as is. There are a couple sub-accounts that I'll let him explain where you will see increases from the previous year. One is for 18,000, that's sub-account 250. And that's really the highest one and is a very good reason for that, which the chief will explain. But for the most part, again, his budget remained flat. This is not a big operations budget for the size of the police department. So Chief, can you go over sub-account 250 and the reason for that $18,000 increase?
Yes, sir. The Attorney General's has a guideline that mandates the department do a inventory full audit of our property function upon the retirement of the chief. We were required to do that after the retirement of Chief Glenn O'Reilly. We pushed it off from last year until this coming year. We're up for reaccreditation in 2025, and we'll have to have it done by then. So that's why we were doing it this year. It's an extensive, time-consuming project, requires several of our people to work with a professional outside agency. And the outside agency that we're using, or that we're recommending to use, is Property Room Consulting, who we've used in the past. They're familiar with our property function. They've helped with the purge in the past with us. So it's makes for a very efficient process with us, but is expensive because it is time-consuming. And the cost, I believe, is $20,000 for that.
Okay. And one of the other things I want to cover is staffing. So currently, police department has 94 sworn officers. The authorized strength is 97. I have put a temporary hiring freeze on this budget to keep costs down, to give council an idea of what it would cost to bring back the 3 officers, say July 1st, half a year. We'd have to put an additional $67,725 in the salary budget. That $67,725, that does not include pension costs, that does not include healthcare costs. What I also had to do is remove, that would be half a year's salary for three officers. What I also had to remove was the SLEOs that we intended to do, park rangers, and that was, the purpose for that was for them to patrol our parks. We had a number of vandalism cases in our parks, especially the bathroom facility at Voti Park, spray painting, breaking of the toilets, and hiring SLEO 1, Special Law Enforcement Officer 1s, would give us a little bit of some additional resources to patrol our parks on a daily basis. So that was removed, and to put the 4 back in there for half a year would run us about $67,200. So that just gives you an idea. That's about 100 and whatever it comes out to, 134,000 and change to add the 3 police officers and the 4 SLEO officers into the 2024 budget. Again, that does not include health benefits for the police and or pension benefits that the town has to contribute to. These SLEOs are not covered under health, not covered under, actually they would be covered under the defined contribution retirement plan, but that's an inconsequential amount that the town would have to contribute. The other thing I wanted to bring up is overtime. Again, as I mentioned in my presentation, we have not increased overtime, the overtime amount for the police department since 2017. It's currently at $600,000. Last year, the police department expended $696,445 in overtime. The good news of that is that about 96,000 in that area. We received reimbursements from various grants and some other municipalities where we participated in events for them that reimbursed us. Chief, you just want to explain a few of those?
Yes, Richfield Park is one of those towns. We provide officers for overtime when they do the fireworks display on 4th of July. We also have, I think it was the SWAT team that we have officers on as part of for the county reimburses the town. We also have reimbursements from DEA and HSI where we have officers on loan to task forces. So, and also there's grants for traffic safety, pedestrian safety that we do, that we get reimbursed from the state. So altogether, it adds up to about $98,000 in reimbursements to the town.
Okay. And so that everyone is aware, since October 7, the police department has incurred $31,083 for overtime for the various expenses related to demonstrations, car caravans, and so far in 2024, the police department has expended $68,463 in overtime for the various demonstrations that we've had to staff. That comes to just a little bit under $100,000 for that 4 or 5 month period of time in overtime. So again, we have not increased overtime at all from $600,000 that dates back to 2017. As I mentioned, the hourly rates do go up. And so, again, it's a testament to the leadership at the police department that, you know, they're doing the best they can with the staffing they have to kind of curtail and keep overtime to what is budgeted. So, again, it's not a fat budget. I think the chief, for the most part, has what he needs in this budget. And just for capital purposes, to help out with this budget, some of the items that the chief had asked for, we're going to pull from municipal forfeiture at no cost to the town. However, in capital, there is $545,000 in there for the purchase of police cars that are desperately needed. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, you need the insulation for the range. I think that is about $45,000 in that
That's
area.
correct, sir. Yes.
So those would be the 2 items that the police are requesting for capital for 2024. So that's really it from me.
So the radios?
Digital radios?
We have them in 2025, Andy. We're gonna put money in 2025, but I'm hoping that we can get the federal grant for that as well to help contribute. So what the police department wants to do is, we have a very outdated VHF high frequency for police dispatch and radios. We really want to go on the county infrastructure. And to replace everything we need to replace would be about $1.2 million. So it's not something that can be done this year. The idea was to apply for grants this year to see if we can find money for that. I've spoken to the county. One of the problems is, in order to go on the county infrastructure, radio infrastructure, they also want the municipalities to join 911. And obviously, we're not going to do that. We just finished our 911 PSAP center. I think 911, keeping 911 here is very beneficial to the town. Our dispatchers know TNEC. There is no delay in the calls going back and forth when received. They're generally routed to MAWA, then they come here. So we don't want that. So I'm trying to work with the county to see if they would be amenable to allowing us to go onto their infrastructure, radio infrastructure, at no cost or minimal cost. So I'm working on that. But there is a push that they want us to go on their 911, which we don't want to do.
And the radios that we're requesting are dual band that would work with our existing system, and also would work on digital so that we could communicate with other towns if we needed to. The existing system would possibly be used by TVAC if we were to go to digital, but it would give us the ability to work with both.
I do have, I'm sorry, I do have the 1.2 million in capital for 2025 in a 6-year capital plan.
Can I just ask a question about the radio? Is that just replacing the headquarters, or is that also replacing the repeaters that are around town and adding additional where needed? And also, I was gonna ask how it relates to TVAC and their radios.
So recently we had our system evaluated between Goosetown and the DPW. Larry Robertson was involved with it as well. They did an assessment of our whole system to see what could we do to just improve what we have already. And they did make several minor improvements. There were wires that needed to be replaced that were burned out. There was repeaters that needed updating. But again, we still need work on our system.
So are we doing those improvements?
Those have been done. Those have been done.
Will those improvement work with the new
So-
switch? This is the one, what is your frequency? 155.820 or 159.620? 700? Okay. I wasn't sure.
One of those, yes, sir.
We got the 155. Oh, that's the repeater, okay.
So the digital system
I
would
was
be,
just flexing, by the way.
I see that.
Just wanted to. Oh, there's one. Yeah.
Yeah, so this would be separate from that system. It would be the infrastructure that the county has in place that several towns have already gone to. It's the clarity of the communications is much different than what we're working on right now. The range is tremendous, the distance you can go and still receive. Not that that always is necessary, but it does come up occasionally.
No, I just hear that we need to put repeaters in Holy Name Hospital. That's all I keep hearing from people. Right? Because as soon as you walk through those doors, it's a dead zone.
Yeah, we've worked on several different locations and it wasn't too long ago, we had a problem over on the west side of town with the repeater that went, there was a line that had to be replaced across the tracks.
Yeah.
So there's been several issues with it, but this would be separate from that system, working on the county's system that's already in place. Again, several towns, I know Pagoda's using it, they rave about how well it works. And again,
Leonia as well. The chief, Tom, my deputy manager, also went over to, when he was in Leonia, to the county.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Ms.
Um, Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask one question first. I know, circling back to what Dean was saying about sworn officers versus authorized strength, did the 67,000 include the pre-employment screening decrease that came out, or would that have to go back in if more officers were included? I think pre-employment screening went down 30,000 in this
Right.
budget, so I just want to know if there was additional officers added, does that go back in, or is that factored into that number already?
So we have almost 11,000 in the budget that would remain, so that should cover, if we did hire the 3 officers, that should cover the pre-screening, psychological and medical, whatever is needed.
I believe that was the county.
Okay.
Four people.
So we should be fine with that.
My second question goes to overtime. My first question is, in normal periods, how much of the overtime is during a shift change? Do we calculate that? Like, do we ever see that? Like, I know it's emergency services generally, so do we know if a significant amount of that overtime is because of a shift change or a planned event, or do we know? I'm just curious.
A shift change. I'm not sure what you mean by. the
So
shift
like
change.
if officers are, ending their shift and they're at a scene that, they're staying obviously, and then there's overtime, how much do we know on an average year, is it because their shift's ending and there's an emergency, or is there, just trying to get a sense of where in normal times, I know overtime for police is always higher than the budget. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what that's usually allocated as a result of.
So that does occur, obviously. I think that would be incremental compared to the overall amount of overtime that's incurred. I think the majority of it comes from shortages. This past year, we were very short on dispatchers. We were short in patrol. We were down in the 80s on staffing. And in order to try and keep different positions throughout the bureaus staffed and to get people trained by people that are senior while they're still senior, we were losing several people in our bureau to promotions. The sergeant's exam that came out about a year or so ago, several of the top people on that list were all members of our detective bureau that were the experienced personnel. those are the ones that would train new people coming into the Bureau. So we had a balance of bringing people into the Bureau, running a little short in patrol and covering those shortages with Bureau personnel. It really required a lot of juggling around and people all pitching in order to get training done and yet minimize the overtime incurred. But shortages in staffing is really the majority of it, because you're talking about a 12-hour block of overtime when we're short by one person. You know, two people, that'd be obviously 24 right there. Somebody staying over an hour, 2 hours here or there, it happens, but it's really, I don't think would be much of our overtime budget.
And just remember, Councilwoman, all the different events that the police staff, TNEC Day, you probably have 20+ officers working there overtime for 5, 6, 7 hours. You have Memorial Day, 4th of July, and there's many other unforeseen events that take place, whether they're weather related. So that's all contained in the chief's overtime budget.
So since the overtime has been budgeted flat, but we've gone over, does it make sense to stay knowing that we're gonna go over? Like, what's your opinion on the overtime budget, since it hasn't been increased since 2017?
I don't think the overtime budget has been increased since I've been here. I think it's been 600,000 for 30 years.
Well,
maybe.
So that's what I'm asking. Do you think that it should be, like, I'm trying to get a sense of what your opinion is on that to maintain that, whether if there's something that we can do to maintain that cost to keep it down, or is it just too low right now? We're not being realistic. I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
I think with our staffing levels the way it was last year, and the fact that now we are getting closer to full staff, the closer we get to fully staffed, it should help us manage the overtime even better. It's shortages that cause that overtime. Last year, we did take steps to manage it, and I think we did a pretty good job of that, of keeping it under pretty much 600,000. We were under the budget when you take into account all the reimbursements. So I think we should be able to work all right with it, especially if we get, we are fully staffed with dispatchers right now. We're close to full staffing in patrol, and it gives us the ability to do the different functions and minimize overtime at the same time.
2 more questions, and then I'll pass it on. Parking enforcement. Do we have sufficient parking enforcement in your opinion? Do we think that we need more? I mean, I hear all sorts of complaints about Cedar Lane parking and what's your, or double parking, whatever, triple parking, pickup parking. Do we have a sufficient staffing in that department? What's your take there?
Presently, we have 1 parking enforcement officer. We had 2 earlier in the year. 1 left for other employment. Over the year, spoke with the manager, and we do feel that 3 parking enforcement officers would be optimal, being the level of complaints that we have for different areas, especially with the double parking in the business districts. Again, it would be ideal to have the 3. We need to come up with vehicles for the 3. We've been trying for a while to get vehicles for parking enforcement, but we're working with the purchasing department to do what we can with that. We have 3 vehicles out to bid, I think, right now. But if we can get to 3, it's definitely productive, I think, and we definitely could use them.
Okay, yeah, because that's just, I mean, we all hear about parking, and I think that's an important piece. I don't know if this is the right place, so Dean, if it's not, correct me. Do crossing guards fall under you or no?
No, it's through a contract with all cities. The police department used to have control of school crossing guards. Traffic Bureau basically ran that program for all the school posts. And then, Issa, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 or 3 years ago, we transitioned to all cities. And, you know, one of several reasons we did it for is that whenever school crossing guard called in sick, didn't show up, and that happened quite often, the police department would have to take an officer either on overtime or off the road to handle that school post for the entire duration of the day. We had other issues with doing the school crossing guards through TNEC, unemployment, workers' comp. So transitioning it to a company relieved us of those duties. They are responsible whenever someone calls in sick for finding a replacement. I think for the most part, we haven't had any problems with any of the posts. I think they've done a good job, all cities. I think they're one of the only games in town as well, unfortunately, but they do handle many different towns. They took over the school crossing guards that were originally employed by TNEC. So really nobody lost their job. I think they all got a slight increase in pay as well. So I think everyone was happy with that, but I think the program is going very well.
Yeah, no, the reason I'm asking is because I see there's $100,000 increase for it this year, so I'm trying to, I want to ask at the right place, so that's why I'm asking why it's going up $100,000 there.
So, the first
Can't
meeting
hear.
that I looked at, the, budget for crossing guards, it's a.
I can't hear,
Here's my mic. Lisa here.
sorry.
So, so the purchasing agent and I, review the budget in December. The contract is actually prorated for crossing guards. Because we're a calendar year, the school is more of a state fiscal year from September really to August. We have to do some math. Right now, their contract comes in prorated at 408,000. There was a request from the manager to me late last year to add another post. And also we have to keep in mind that we can only award their contract to them once to maybe twice, once if not every year, if not every other year. We were able to do a renewal last year, and this year it is up for a rebid. We're also dealing with the economic factor that they're the only game in town, as the manager just mentioned. So we feel that 420 is adequate, but again, they came in at 408 right off the bat as an estimate. So it's something that's out of our control. When the manager and I looked at this with the former chief in 2020, 2021, it's really an iceberg. You think the cost is exorbitantly high, but when you compare to Hackensack, who pays $750,000, and I don't believe that's an outsourced service. You have to keep in mind when a crossing guard doesn't show up, the chief and his staff have to scramble with potentially a $65 to $80 an hour police officer to hold up a sign. I'm not denigrating that, but they're helping students cross the street for an hour and a half. They're not writing tickets. They're not responding to calls. So there is a missed opportunity there that you can have the individual back on the road. And really, it's a matter of threshold, for lack of better expression. But for right now, we feel this is still worth it for us. And so that's the reason for the increase.
Okay, I think I'm okay right this second. If I have another question, I'll jump in, but I'll let someone else.
Mr.
Oh, wait,
Mr. Ma-
sorry, Deputy Mayor G had her hand up. Then I'll call on you, Mark, if that's okay.
Not a problem. They're in 10 minutes anyways. Thank you.
I was just curious, when you talked about the parking enforcement vehicles, have you ever looked into those smaller golf cart-like vehicles? I don't know if they would be cheaper.
Well, what we're looking at is the Ford Bronco Sports, the smaller Bronco. We were looking around last year to try and find a vehicle in short time. We were looking at what was available, and it also has four-wheel drive. So in the winter, it's a little more efficient. We can multi-purpose it. So that's what we were looking at. We presently are out to bid with those. We've looked at different options, but around here, obviously Northeast, you have to take into account the weather conditions, summers, winters. So that's what we came up with.
Let me just see if Mr. Schwartz, are you there, sir?
I am. Sorry about that, guys. I apologize. I'm a little bit of traffic from Brooklyn. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Mr. Chief, two questions, if I may. One, first of all, as it relates to cars, we used to always, pass the first line to the second line, to detectives, into traffic enforcement, DPW. There's no used cars, or you're saying the used cars are so beat up that we need to spend the money on brand new cars for the parking enforcement?
Yeah, we're just short on vehicles all around. We haven't been able to get cars. The last batch of cars we got, we put in for 8. We were only able to get 7. It took about a year and a half for them to arrive.
Got it, guys. So it's the COVID issue with car. That's the issue, not the long-term issue, just because of availability.
Yes, and a lot of the vehicles that do get older in age and less reliable are used, say, for the off-duty traffic, the extra duty details. So we do use them. We use some vehicles for ghost cars that we call them when you put it outside somewhere as a security measure.
Sure. Okay, thank you. No, in the ghost cars that we started a few years ago, where we specifically asked you not to sell them, but to use them for this is excellent. It makes a phenomenal difference. And by the way, just like an officer on a crossing guard patrol, it actually is great safety for that for many reasons. That said, what from a dispatcher point of view, I know we are always a short. I know you're trying to do a push in hiring. What would you think we spend on officers at the desk dispatching and not on the road because of the shortage? Like, you think that's 100 grand, 200 grand? And that's question number one. Two, remind me, what's the starting salary or the per diem that we're offering dispatchers?
Well, first, to put a number on officers at the desk, I really don't want to estimate. It would be a pretty substantial number. There's a significant amount of time that officers are working dispatch positions. Something I've been going over with the captains as an idea, and I've mentioned to the manager, is the possibility of trying to hire 4 additional dispatchers. Presently, we work with 2 dispatchers per shift, and if a dispatcher calls out sick, we have to cover it with an officer. If we go with 3 dispatchers per shift, allowing 1 dispatcher off per shift, and separate dispatch from patrol, we would try and use just dispatchers to fill the dispatch opening. It would be a more economical way of keeping more officers on the road. Again, using the different functions. We want to use our officers to their best ability, and they're, supposed to be on the road as much as possible. Putting a number on that would be very difficult.
And Mark, the salary for public safety telecommunicators, they're not per diem. Starting salary for them, I believe, is about 55,000, and that includes health benefits and, of course, enrollment into the public employee retirement system.
Got it. So you're not offering any shift work, like for $30 an hour, all of a sudden.
We can. We've discussed that a little bit, and I think some of the difficulties, Chief, I don't know if you want to explain the difficulties of trying to get last minute fill-ins for PSTs.
It's shifts. Everybody's working different shifts. To try and get them to come in when a lot of them have second jobs, different commitments, short time calling people in is always difficult. One of the problems we have also is the salaries for our dispatchers are lower for the general area. That's one of the reasons we lost several dispatchers this year. It's unfortunate that we're becoming kind of a training ground for people to get their experience and then move elsewhere where they can make more money. I think our dispatchers do a tremendous job. They're great. Dee Costello, who's been here longer than I have, trains them, gives them the 911 certifications, the EMD, and working at Teaneck is a great experience for them. It's a busy town. They learn how to do the job right. Our supervisors oversee it, make the corrections that need to. So, for a dispatcher from Teaneck to apply elsewhere, I think it's a very attractive position for a department to pick them up, especially if they're paying more money. So that's something that, I think if we could try and increase their salaries a little bit to be at least competitive with the rest of the county, it would help with our retention. But we had a major overturn of dispatchers in the past year and a half. Presently, we're at full staff, and if possible, as an option we may explore going forward, is the additional 4 dispatchers as an idea to separate dispatch from patrol and have our patrol officers doing patrol work only.
That makes perfect sense.
Yes. Thank you.
You good, Mr. Schwartz?
I'm good. Thank you very much, guys.
Ms. Belcher?
Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you for your presentation tonight. I just wanted to ask you about account 220, where it speaks about training, but it also has quite a bit of dues and so forth. I see an increase of about 7.9% in terms of what was actual versus what was adopted versus what was spent. And I'm just simply wondering, is it, speaking of training, would you say that you feel that your officers are receiving adequate training? Do you see a need to increase that, or are you the actual, like, for instance, sensitivity training, is that a line item somewhere else, or is it borne by some other entity? So that as your officers are coming and receiving training, is it inherent in sub-account 220, or is it seen elsewhere?
So there's certain mandatory training that we take every year. And with this year, with the new licensing process, it used to be done through a certain program. Now it's done through the state. The PTC has a system now that all the mandatory training will be done there, like our use of force, pursuit training.
Mhm.
It's all going to be through their system and tracked by them. This training budget, which was $15,000 for a long time, it wasn't until I think last year that we increased it to 20. What we're seeing is every class is costing a lot of money now. It used to be there was a lot of free classes given up at the Bergen County Academy for county officers from the county. Even the classes that are being given up there now are costing $200, $300, $400 for a 2-day class for one officer. It's unbelievable what it's costing us to train people. And obviously, as most people have seen in the paper, there was a big debacle about a particular training group that was giving training that was not, that was controversial and brought a lot of attention to police training statewide. So now there's a lot more scrutiny going into the classes. There's fewer classes. After COVID, there was very few training opportunities out there at all. And that's kind of how that group came into where they were, because nobody was giving classes. And they were like the only game in town again where officers could go to get some kind of training in all different aspects of law enforcement. So unfortunately, with the cost of all these classes going up as much as they have, I don't know if that 20,000 will be sufficient. We do encourage training, especially with our newer officers. We do scrutinize the training to the degree of how applicable it is to the individual. So when someone gets a special assignment into the Detective Bureau, we want them to go to training for interview and interrogation, preparing search warrants, skills that are applicable to that position, as opposed to someone putting in for that might not be using those particular skills in their current assignment. You know, we do try and encourage training that would help broaden an individual's resume, but again, it has to be knowledge that is applicable to them, especially at the cost of what it is for us.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for our chief? Ms. Organ?
Mr. Mayor, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Organ?
So I understand the budgetary reasons for the delayed hirings or the hiring freeze. Do you think short of full staff, the department can continue to operate with all these events, assuming that they continue going forward with the manpower that you have, with the overtime budget, but also with burnout to the officers who are there without coming up? I just want to be realistic and know that we're giving the officers that we're requesting to come in on holidays and weekends and work overtime, that we're not, we're factoring burnout into the budget.
I don't know if you can put a price tag on burnout, honestly. You know, we take the mental well-being of our officers very seriously, the resiliency that we speak about all the time with the manager. We have resilient officers, we have supervisors that are part of our resiliency program. Reverend Mays is a big part of that for us. But you can't put a price tag on it. Over time, it's cumulative. It builds up on people. It affects morale tremendously. And staffing wise, you know, the closer we get to full staff, the less people get ordered to work. And that's just one way that you chip away at, you know, keeping that morale high. The more people get ordered to do something that, you know, they didn't plan to, it just kind of builds up over time. So the closer we are getting, yes, it will help us. Additional personnel obviously would always be nice. I can always find more stuff to do. I mean, our department does more now than it did 5 years ago, than it did 10 years ago. We have functions that we have to perform now that just didn't exist before. Body cameras, we have to do body camera redaction footage. We deal with Oprah. There's just, you know, a lot of different functions that we're doing now that didn't exist before. Training, mandated training from the state every year, they just add more and more and more that we have to take care of and find time to do it. A lot of times that training has to be done with officers that are in patrol, that we have to now cover their spots with other officers, and it might cause overtime. But again, if we get back to the full staffing, I think it would help us tremendously, and at least knowing that we have people there. For these large events, having to order everybody in, you know, it's not something I want to do, especially if it's on holidays. You know, but we do our job. And you know, we have other resources that we draw upon. I don't want to keep going back to those wells too often. You know, I'm sure everybody's aware of some of the county resources we have between the RDT from the prosecutor's office and the RDF from the Bergen County Chiefs Police Association. And those functions are filled by officers from different departments across the county. And when they're called out on overtime, that overtime is paid for by their individual departments. So again, that's a well I don't want to keep having to go back to if I don't have to. So
Yeah, I know, I get it. Something we'll consider. And then just a silly question about parking enforcement. Can't we have 2 shifts of them and have one work 7 to 3 and one work 3 to 11 and share the same car? I don't,
well, yes, that's what we were looking to do. When we were talking about having 3 parking enforcement officers, we were looking at 2 for the day and 1 in the evening.
okay.
And we were looking at doing the 3 cars. The daytime is when the majority of your parking issues would be, but in the evening also around rush hour, especially in the business districts. But between
Yeah.
the traffic bureau we were looking at the SLEOs for the parks. We thought the 3 vehicles would be a good start for that.
Okay. Thanks so much for everything you do.
Thank you.
Ms. Goldberg, I think you wanted to say something else.
Yeah, I had one more question. I just want to understand if this is being used still or not. So between sub-account 271 and 210, there's some PPE and special vehicle disinfectant and the drum costs that were tied to COVID. Are those still being used? Where are we with those? Look, last year we didn't spend it at all, so I'm just trying to understand if those are still there or are they savings that we can pull out?
We were keeping that in there just again, it was unpredictable as to whether or not we were going to deal with another issue with COVID. If COVID spikes again, we wanted to be prepared. We wanted to have it in the budget to be able to get the disinfectant. We were using that disinfectant initially with COVID for us, the ambulance corps. I think maybe the fire department might have used it as well. So we were keeping it in there at least for the time being.
Okay, I just wanted to understand why I was in there. Thank you. And thank you for everything that you've done also, all of you.
Anybody else on council? No? Thank you, Chief. We appreciate you.
I just wanted to, I wanted to personally thank the police department. I haven't had the opportunity to say what a phenomenal job you and everybody on your team has been doing, especially the last couple of weeks or months. Real professional and really exceptional. So thank you very much. We do appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
And I also want to send the message, and this is very important because over the years, people misconstrued messages. The council's position is to try to do what's best for the police department and all departments, but at the same time, try to strike the balance to make sure that our residents can continue to afford to live here. And when we take money from one area, it's not a reflection on the fact that you're doing a poor job or that we don't appreciate you. It's really just an attempt to try to balance it so that our residents can continue to afford to live here. And Ms. Shanae, I never got a chance to really speak to you either, but I'm hearing unbelievable things about you. And so keep it up, whatever it is you're doing. Councilmember Oregon can't stop talking about you. I think she's got a big poster of you at her house. So
All the time.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. So, but that's very important to you and all the departments, that's the message. And when we sit here fighting about, taking away overtime or taking away a police car or taking away a fire truck or, removing whatever is, it's not a reflection on your hard work and dedication. It's really our grappling and fighting to try to find the right balance, especially this year when many residents already got hit with this revaluation increase. And now they're looking at this and they're looking at the Board of Ed, and I heard rumor has it county's going up. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our residents can continue to afford to live in this town and enjoy the wonderful services. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next up is the fire department, right, Dean?
Yep, just had 3 other comments about the police department with the telecommunicator, the police dispatchers. They have 9 total steps marked, and there, is the minimum. Then there's 7 in between, then a maximum. Right now, the max goes up to 65,000. So one of the things we can do is make sure that we're starting new dispatchers at one of the maybe middle to upper steps if needed. So that's more of a, I guess, competitive salary.
yeah, I think it's money. I think if we, any money we spend on the dispatcher will not be equivalent to how much we spend on a police officer. And more often than not, maybe not right this second, every time you call the front desk, it's officer so-and-so picking up the phone. So it's what we do at the fire department. It's simple math. So if we can increase it, we'll actually probably save money.
And we are at full staff with telecommunicators, so we do have 9.
Tomorrow's
Um,
a new-
That's right, tomorrow's another day. The other thing I wanted to bring up with a police officer, it's a good 9 months before that officer is actually on the road by himself or herself. The next academy class, if we did put these back in, would take place in July. So it's 6 months at the training academy. That's followed by 3 months of field training. So they're not by themselves for a good 9 months. Again, just to touch on the interest in law enforcement, and the chief and I spoke about this, the next law enforcement exam, we have to make a better concerted effort to get that word out, whether it's through, we did a video in the past, posters, flyers, we have to, the schools, the college, we really have to brand ourselves, I think, a little bit better, because the last exam only yielded nine Teaneck residents. The one before that, I think, was 14 or 16, something like that. So, we have an ordinance that requires residency. So when we exhaust the Teaneck residents, which we do very quickly for various reasons, we transition to Bergen County residents. So we could be getting someone that lives in Northvale, someone that lives in Whitehawk, Park Ridge, and I think the theme of what we want here is to try to get officers that know the town, live here, even though they can move out after a year, but are vested in this community here in Teaneck and truly represent our diversity. So,
Dean, if you increase the age, I'll apply.
you had your opportunity.
I passed on it, I know.
And
Twice.
the last comment was, we upped the table of organization. I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, from 95 to 97. The purpose of that, I put those 2 extra spots in there to increase community policing. The programs that the police department do in community policing are so important to the municipality, to the residents, to the youth of Teaneck. And I really wanted to get back to running some of the programs we were unable to do for many years. CP used to have a lieutenant, 6 officers. I think we had a staffing of well over 100 back then. Now CP has 2, chief, has 2. So again, I would love to, add those 2 to CP, but unfortunately, due to retirements, and the chief and I were just joking about this the other day, they're up to, the next badge will be badge number 400. So we've lost a considerable amount of officers over the last 2 or 3 years, probably 40%, I would suspect.
Give us an example. What was your badge? We want to have
I
a
was
frame of
I was
reference.
204, 204.
Okay, not bad.
So, but
And when the chief?
241. So,
Brown was 188, right?
no, 193. Yeah. Yep.
So that's a lot of turnover.
Yeah, it's a big turnover, and it was very difficult to try to keep our staffing numbers up. It wasn't from lack of us not wanting to do it. It was just because so many people were leaving, people didn't want the job anymore.
Yeah, Dean, quick question. Didn't a lot of that happen during the pandemic? Because a lot of our
Sure, yes.
officers started between 1990 and 1994.
And
And
we lost a lot around that time. These were coveted jobs. People would not leave, but we're finding officers just picking up and going, or going to a different department. We just had an officer that left us, come back to us, actually 2. So the grass is not always greener. And it's a good place to work. It's a good town. We do things the right way. I have the utmost confidence in the police department, not because they work there or manage here. I'm telling you, we do things the right way here. That we're a lot different than some other towns, and how we handle the big demonstrations, events. We have, fortunately or unfortunately, we have a lot of experience doing that, and we do things the right way with respect, restraint, and may not be what everyone wants, but again, we do things appropriately. Proud of the police department, how they've handled everything. So I think we're in good shape. We'll get to where we need to get to, whether it's this year or next year. If we do decide to put them in again, keep in mind, they're not going to be on their own until April of 2025. So they're not really going to be too much of a help this year.
Quick question, Dean, I have is that moratorium on, no hiring, that's going to stay in effect until a year, or would
Well,
you?
the plan would be that, come January, that, we'll be able to hire, we'll have to, through the temporary budget, make sure that we include, the hirings of the new police officers, firefighters, and any other municipal position that we need, and that's why, again, this budget's tough. If, you go back to hiring, 3 or 4 police officers in January, 3 or 4 firefighters in January, you're paying them the full salary, and you have to budget their full salary in 2024, not half a year. So next year will be tough as well. But we could do that in January, as long as we put that in the temporary budget.
Thank you.
Do we have anticipated retirements this year?
Chief?
Sorry, I know you just sat down.
There's no one under 30 on the force, so.
No, we do have several people who could retire. And like the manager highlighted, it is at least a 9-month window from when we decide we want to hire somebody to when we can have them on the road. The academy runs twice a year. There's a July class and a January class. So if we wait, it's 6 months before we can put somebody in the academy again. That's 6 months short, however many people retire. And we do have less and less people to pick from through the process, like the manager mentioned. There's so few people putting in. We try to emphasize residents from Teaneck. We like to have people who know the town, who've grown up here, and just know the way Teaneck operates. It's just beneficial to everybody all around. Putting off the process puts us behind. I think we might, is it 11 or 14 people that I think that could retire this year if they wanted to? And part of the reason that we had the big turnover the last couple of years is back when I got hired was during a big turnover in the state. They offered a benefit to early buyouts.
20, if you had 20 years back then, they'd give you, the state would give you 5.
Right. So from 1993, for a couple of years, there was a massive turnover in police fire services. Now here we come 25 to 30 years later, all those people that got hired back then are all retiring. That's why we have such a big turnover now. But putting off this process you're pushing it back 6 months and then maybe another 6 months to start it. And then you're looking 9 months later for that person to be on the road where they count to replace somebody that retired today. And it's a difficult process. We do 2 steps forward, 1 step back every time. And, getting up to 94 is great. But we've been trying to get here for the last several years. There's different requirements of the academy. There's the physical assessment that they put in place that was brand new about a year and a half ago. We sent 9 people up there. We had 4 people pass it. So we tried to get close to 97 with those 9 people. We only got 4. And then the next class, we only got a couple in, and it's just difficult. So we try to keep hiring when we can. We have that 97 number. We want to try and get there. I think if we slow down and don't try and put in people when we can, we're going to go back to where we just kind of fall back into the 80s very quickly, just due to natural attrition, retirements, transfers, whatever might come up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, Fire, Chief Burstall, Lieutenant Anillo, you coming up, or are you?
He's gonna sit here in case we
Okay,
need
good.
any help. He's my backup.
All right, so for the fire budget, that's page number 84 in your budget book, and it's account number 265. Just to go over a couple quick things with the fire department, their operational budget again is not fat and loaded with things. In 2023, we adopted $370,000, a little over $370,000. There is an increase of 41,000 this year. The chief will go over why and some of the reasons why there is really a mandatory increase. So in 2024, I'm requesting from council $411,479. Now there are 2 sub-accounts, and I'll have the chief explain that, 221 and 246, where you'll see one increase of 42,500 and another increase of 25,000. And Chief, I'll let you go over those 2 accounts.
Yes, but if I don't mind to derail, everybody here, I got a PSA announcement. So I don't know if anybody's been watching television lately, but there's now an infomercial on fire blankets. So we received an abundance of calls. Have you seen the fire blankets? So instead of buying a fire extinguisher, you grab this fire blanket in your kitchen, you throw it over the stove. That's the infomercial. It's on all different kinds of channels. We're getting a lot of inquiries about it. So just some public information about it. It's not a bad device. However, again, I always remind everybody, call the fire department first. Second of all, make sure your house is evacuated and everybody is out of the house and taken care of before you go ahead and take any attempt to do any type of fire safety action. And then if you're going to use your extinguisher, fine, know how to use the extinguisher, have practiced, have planned, and know that is an eye, nose, and ear irritant, and you could end up with asthma or some other ailment because you're doing it inside of a structure. With the blankets, the same thing. They show you grabbing this blanket off, and they show you throwing it over a pot on the stove. The problem is first you got to shut the device off. And then second of all, you got to be careful because as you throw this blanket over there, which is supposed to smother, depending on what you're wearing, you could catch yourself on fire. So again, can't stress it enough. Have working smoke detectors outside of every spot in your house. Call the fire department first, escape the house, and let us come do it within 3 to 5 minutes. All right, back to your budget.
221, Joe?
221.
Sub account, that's on page 88. And that's one of the accounts where you will see an increase of 42,500 from the previous year.
So part of this budget is basically not only fire service equipment, but also is this our computer aided dispatch? Where's that? No, that's an office.
The special projects.
This is a special project. So with equipment, when we do go ahead and, for example, we were able to order the engine just before the end of the year. And as we know, every quarter, the price of apparatus is going up anywhere from 4 to 6%. We are in the process of ordering the ladder. You should be getting that for the April 2nd meeting. Thank you for both of that. With that, those vehicles are coming in not equipped, meaning no equipment on them. So we have to make up the equipment somehow. In the previous couple years, when we bought the 2 engines together, we sold a rescue truck for $125,000, which supplemented some of the equipment. So throughout the year, and that's why I brought Lieutenant Neal with me to show you some of the equipment that has a life expectancy of 10 years based on what it does, how we use it, how much it gets used. And it has to be replaced. It has to be maintained. It has to be upgraded because at some point it just no longer functions. I mean, we try to keep stuff 10, 20, even sometimes 30 years, like our one engine is 30 years old. And we try to, what? It's all 30 years old? Okay. The national standard is 10 years of frontline service and another 10 years of secondary service. So that stuff has to be replaced. And at some point, that stuff, unfortunately, is very expensive. If you're looking at an air pack right here, the cost of an air pack for one individual to wear one air pack, that's almost $10,000. And the cylinder itself only has a life expectancy, again, not our wishes, federal regulations of the 10 years. The SCBA face piece to the front, which we were able to get some on the that grant that the governor last year put into play, and which we're again using this year, they're $500 just for that face piece alone. As you know, we got the radio grant that saved the town a huge amount of money. That portable is $10,000 each. Your bunker pants and bunker coats, which you see later on, is another big cost in this budget every year. Because again, when you hire a new hire, you have to replace bunker gear, bunker pants, and just coat. And that's just the coat and the pants, not all the other accessories. You're looking at $6,000, and it has a life expectancy of only about 7 years.
Fire prevention days.
Yes, the thermal imaging camera, which we were able to get off of that grant last year. They're about $7,000 a piece. So as much as we can, we try to get our equipment out of grants, or when we purchase something like an apparatus, we try to put some of that money a little bit more into the purchase of the equipment so that it can actually come with equipment on it and not try to actually have to piecemeal it later on. So did that answer that question?
Chief, I know, John, you serve on one of before we get into the other part of the budget, what unit do you serve on where you travel in case there's a catastrophic? So John is also lieutenant's on the New Jersey Task Force, and whenever there's a catastrophic event anywhere in the country, he can be called out to duty. He's specially trained, and we appreciate his service for that.
The advantage to that is he is our special ops trainer. So we save a ton of money every year by having him retraining our members on the training that the state is paying for him for free.
Something free from the state, you said?
Yes.
Oh,
We
okay.
try to beg, borrow, and steal in my
Wow.
department.
All right, and then 246, Chief, and that's on my book, it's on page 90, and
Yeah,
that covers
the
the
shared dispatch services. So, we just recently re-signed that agreement with the city of Hackensack. We are still moving towards trying to move dispatch to Hackensack. It's been a slow and long process. Some of the derailments, over the years was the, lack of capital funding for the fiber link. The fiber link is now up. We are still having some minor communications with their dispatch center receiving the signals from TNEC. Some of the delay is our wiring. A lot of the wiring in-house is done by the DPW. And I wanted to thank the Garden Club because every year they give us flowers for our firehouses. I
Thank
can't
you.
thank them enough. So, yeah, so the DPW provides the electricians, which then provides the wiring, which cuts down your costs, but then also creates a delay in us moving to Hackensack. We are 3/4 of the way there. The computer system, the CAD system that you purchased several years ago, which is under Office Maintenance 213, that's the $20,000. That's the CAD system in the cloud. That covers all our CAD and record management. That allows them to see and dispatch our runs on the same computer system. We're all on the same, we share a system. So we do have some more wiring that still has to go into a place and take effect. And we always shoot at a 6-month window. We are shooting for July of a 6-month window to actually physically move there, provided or barring any unusual hiccups, which in the last couple of years we've had some, which have delayed the process. The good thing at the end of the day, you will gain 4 new firefighters on the apparatus, 1 each shift. So that'll increase your staffing by 4. They will no longer be on a desk doing the dispatch for TNEC.
Good. That's excellent news. One of the other things I wanted to cover before I go back to your ops budget is just for capital purposes. We have 2 items in 2024 capital improvement for the fire department. One is 200,000. That's for the additional funds for the ladder truck. And Chief, would you just explain the need for that?
Okay, so we had to use the additional funds for the engine to get the ladder. The ladder is going to come in just over 2. I believe I said last year at the 1.8, we knew that was not going to be enough when you eventually awarded that. And of course, the increases definitely showed that. The other problem we're going to have, and we may have to ask for more money, is we understand that the motor in each of those 2 vehicles, which cost $212,950, will no longer be made by the Cummins manufacturer. And yet the Cummins manufacturer will not tell anybody, including their dealers and people that are buying and selling fire trucks, what the new cost of the motor is. So currently you have baked into the cost of those 2 vehicles, that price of the $212,950, but you don't know how much more that's going to rise. So at some point I may have to ask you for additional funding because it'll be our obligation to pay for that new energy efficient, environmentally friendly motor, the X15 that Cummins will eventually come out with, and we won't have a price to that till sometime end of 25. Those 2 fire trucks you will not see till probably end of 26 anyway. So we do have some capital leeway next year and the following year on that.
Now, this 200,000 is not needed in 2024. It can be put into 2025 capital.
It could,
Yeah.
yes. It's
Okay.
going to be for the equipment for both the engine and the ladder truck.
Okay, that's an option just for council if that's the route you wanted to go. There's 200 in 2024 capital right now. We can take that out if needed, but it's only a $10,000 impact to our overall budget because we only have to put 5% down for capital items. And the other thing, Chief, is the fiber optic project, which is 300,000. Just explain again the need for the money. For the
Okay,
fiber optic.
so currently it just cost us 550,000, which as Issa will tell you, we beg, borrowed, and steal from multiple different capital accounts over multiple different years and some of our operating budget to run a fiber line from the TNEC fire quarters all the way to the city of Hackensack. It's one way. There's also baked into our proposed budget this year somewhere along a fee that we're going to have to maintain that fiber line in case that fiber line goes down. We lose all our communications. So we do have some backups and contingency in place as far as our desk area goes. we will immediately bring in somebody on overtime. We'll be able to staff and receive our calls and runs. But that going across until the Hackensack guy, they can send somebody over to man our desk, but that's not your concern per se. Back to that fiber run though, that's how all our communications are going. How those game wall boxes that you see around town, our fire alarm system, our radio communications all travel via that. So one way, one line, if a car hits a pole and we try to keep it off Route 4 as much as possible, it does have to jump on Route 4 to get over the river by FDU and then go back. That severs your fiber optic line. So ideally, the FCC recommendation is to have 2 runs. Now, the 300 is not going to get us the second run immediately, but over time, we would eventually build up enough money that we would have a secondary loop. So should the primary loop ever get hit, car takes out the pole, what have you, you would still have that means of communications.
All right, thank you, Chief. So with the fire budget, again,
I'm sorry, can I just understand the fiber part? What is the fiber exactly for?
The fiber takes all our radios in Teaneck and moves them to Hackensack.
But why are we not doing that over digital like we just talked about with the police department a little bit ago? Why running fiber lines?
Well, if you want to do that, then we're going to have to propose a complete radio upgrade. So our current radio system is VHF system.
I
So
know.
our
You want me to tell you the frequency number? That is
One-
one,
one
that is
five eight-
1588200.
Yeah,
I got
I
it.
got it.
So as you know, we have a primary dispatch channel that dispatches out of Teaneck High School. And we have satellite receivers all over town. They are all currently plumbed or wired into fire headquarters. So that if you're talking on a portable down in Glen Point, it can be heard up in the desk area. So that information then is captured in Teaneck and sent via fiber all the way over to Hackensack. The only other way to do it would be a fiber satellite microwave link. The other thing that it does,
Microwave link would avoid the first fiber line as well, correct? Meaning that would accomplish you're looking for 3 fiber lines or 2?
two. No, I would need 2 separate
2 separate
microwave links. And then
Not, by the way, this is not my field of expertise.
the problem with that is if anybody builds a building in between it, you better have an ordinance because they just blocked your fiber link, your microwave link, and it's not
We know
getting
that
there
Hackensack is building buildings.
left and right. So the other thing that gets transmitted that way is the game well boxes. When the game well box goes off in Teaneck, the signal is then sent via fiber all the way over there. And then our phone,
Is that the new Gamewell or the Larry Robertson Gamewell boxes?
no, the old game
The
well,
old
red
ones.
game well
Right,
boxes.
but the new ones are all done through cellular. no?
No, not
That's-
necessarily. So that system that Larry proposed, I don't know, 10 years ago, that company's out of business. So we basically have gone back or transitioned back to the regular Gamewell box because it's more reliable and cheaper, more efficient. And there is some radio boxes going in, but they're limited. And that radio
Can I
box
ask
would
a-
not
can I ask
travel
a
that
serious
far.
question, and there's just 2 of us talking.
Yes,
Now that people have cell phones,
correct.
and now that people, is anyone really jumping out of the car and pulling that box and think anymore?
Not on the street
'Cause I
boxes.
saw 15 years ago an article saying that they were removing them, and I said, oh, that's poor planning to start removing them around other towns. And now I'm thinking, with cellular phones and, is anyone really jumping out of the car and pulling the box?
No, not on the single street boxes, but you got to remember we have, and I do not know the number, it might be 395 of buildings and city buildings tied to those game wall boxes. So when the fire alarm goes off here in the municipal building, it bangs bells in every firehouse in Teaneck. So it's an instantaneous alerting system. You're not paying for ADT, then you hope to get the call. All your schools, your houses of worship, your other municipal buildings, when that fire alarm goes off in that building, it bangs bells in 4 firehouses. So that's an instantaneous notification that that fire department has to respond to that address, to that building. And we have a lot of commercial buildings as well. We had looked into at one point billing, but I believe we are unable to bill the residential customer or commercial customer.
What, 395 of which?
Our residential, commercial, religious, school buildings tied to game well boxes. So
Got it.
you'd be looking to eliminate all that and making them go to ADT or whoever else.
All right. right. I'm not gonna micromanage your system from the dais right now. I'm just asking
I'm
questions.
just gonna ask,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask a question on that. Most of them actually probably do have ADT, but obviously the instantaneous dispatch is obviously in a bad situation, good. But what's the maintenance nowadays per year, the maintenance budget on the pole boxes?
That's Larry's budget. What is that, $6,000?
It's not much, six,
Right.
7,000.
It's
That-
pennies on the dollar.
That's not worth it.
And some of it's done by our township electrician,
Yeah, Rich Muller.
Rich Muller.
Is there any compliance reason why we have to stay connected from a federal or state requirement or best practices or anything like
For
that?
which system?
In terms of the game well, that we have all those 370 different locations, the pull boxes, in other words, that you're saying that
No, you could have them ripped out as other municipalities have. However, it's a very redundant, cost-effective, cheap system that gives the residents a secondary means of alerting the fire department, and as well as all these municipal buildings and other buildings that you would then have to put on an alarm system, and you'd have to pay a monthly fee.
Sure. Great, thanks.
Anybody else have any questions for the chief?
And one other thing I
Mayor?
want to bring up about your staffing. Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, that's one of my questions, so maybe it's overlapping. I just wanted to know what the staffing levels are right now, and compared to, full strength.
We are short 3, and we will be short more before the end of the year.
Okay, go ahead, Dean, and then I have a couple more questions, but I'll let.
Yep, so, Issa and I put together a figure to fill those 3 spots for half a year would run us 82,500. Again, that does not include pension contributions, that does not include healthcare contributions. But from the salary end, $82,500.
Okay,
Ms. Goldberg, you said you had a couple questions?
yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple clarifications. One, going back to the shared service dispatch, your original ask was for 250, but only 125 was approved. What was the discrepancy with such a big ask from 250 to 125?
250 is the yearly contract that Hackensack is requesting. The
Okay.
125 is, since we are not yet there, we're anticipating July, I was able to give you back that money.
Will we need that next year?
You will need the 250 next year, yes. Once we go online, you will need that every year, unfortunately.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we know about that. Do we have any retirements planned for this year that we know of?
Yes.
How many? Roughly?
1 to 2, possibly more.
Dean, do we have a reserve for that or no?
No, there's no, not in this budget. There's no, did they file, Joe? Actually file? I don't want to mention their names, but.
No, I don't think they actually pushed the button in
Okay.
the system
So
yet.
generally, if they haven't filed yet, they're supposed to give pension and benefits, 3 to 6 months notice. So we're in March. If they haven't, submitted their retirement, they're probably looking to retire sometime middle to later this year.
Okay, and we have nothing reserved for that at all?
No, nothing in this budget.
Okay, my last question isn't necessarily budget. Well, I guess, I don't know, we'll see. I just have a question with Station 4 Windsor Road. Is there
Sure.
any concerns from your end with emergency access to that station in an emergency due to CSX? Like, is there any need for emergency access in the back that you need to get into the station that would result in the tracks not being blocked?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think Councilman Goldberg, this
Go
is.
for it.
Can I try to?
Yes.
We have a real problem with CSX in this town, and they turned Teaneck into a giant parking lot versus what they were supposed to be doing, which is a railway. And one of the problems is that it cuts the town. One of it is that they park in the town, and if we, as a fire department, were responsible to respond to their incidents, right? Your Teaneck Fire Department has to respond. You have to go all the way to Bergenfield, wrap around, and then come all the way past.
Not
So that-
necessarily.
You can get on tracks the other way? How do you get on the tracks?
We may never go on the tracks, depending on what the type of incident is or how far it is. We are so close to the tracks in a lot of places on Windsor Road that we may stay on Windsor
Oh.
Road.
The question is, if we create an emergency access door by that, by the underground tunnel, where the fire department is required to have that access just in case you need to have access, then the trains can't block the emergency access door. They don't block the emergency access door, they don't idle in Teaneck.
That's a nice feature.
I think that's what Councilmember Goldberg was really.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Is that something that makes sense to you? Is
It
that?
sounds like it makes perfect
I
safety
think it's
sense.
great.
Sure,
Yeah.
that might not be the best location, but yes, anytime you
We
can
can have
give
two
me
access
additional,
doors.
anytime you can give me additional access over the tracks another way, that's fine. Currently though, we're very fortunate enough that the forefathers of this town had master plans and put in place that they bridged every rail crossing to allow us 24/7 access.
Right, but I think what Councilmember Goldberg is saying is that the forefathers didn't realize that CSX would take advantage of the Teaneck residents, turning the entire township of Teaneck into a giant idling rail yard.
True.
And what
Yeah.
she's suggesting is that we cut that rail yard by creating emergency accesses. And how do you fight against emergency access?
That might be difficult though, because how are we gonna stop a train that's coming on either the southbound and northbound tracks so that we could utilize that access?
Oh, One,
That you can worry about that.
one headache at a time.
Also, keep in mind that that Station 4 is about 2 miles into the Teaneck boundaries. So you're still, there'll still be plenty of room. You're just kind of pushing the problem down to.
Further
No,
south.
no, but I think what we heard the chief say is that it would be nice to have more than one access. I heard that.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's something that we can explore over the next couple of months. That would be
Sure.
a good idea. Thanks.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
What's your turnaround time once we hire? to
It's
keep
generally
guys-
6 months.
Okay, and the classes are available all the time with you?
No,
When are they available?
hit or miss.
A little more information?
So unfortunately, it's as need basis. The Bergen County, we're at the whim of the Bergen County Fire Academy, which does schedule classes in January, and they mark them out for the year. However, if you get enough people, you can petition for your own class. The magic number has got to be 12 though. So if we're hiring 4 and I can't find another department that's going to give me the need to get this to the 12, they're not going to run a special class. And depending on when you do your classes, the summers are completely full, so you're not getting in a class. You'd be waiting till September. And it's hit or miss.
Okay, and then when we do switch over to Hackensack Dispatch, how many officers do we get back in service that would have been on the desk for each shift?
You get 1 per shift, so a total of 4, 1 each day. 1 extra firefighter each day.
So does that fix the discrepancy a little bit for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any safer grants, safer grants, the name of the grant, coming, right? Any of those coming up?
We are always looking for grants, and we're always out there, always pushing for grants. Yes.
I'm talking about, I'm sorry, the ones where where they pay for the firefighter for 3 years. I
Yes,
believe.
we did it last year. We can do it again this year. The thing is, you have to commit, and the other thing is, whatever your table organization number is, it has to be that or better.
That or better, you can't exceed the table.
You can exceed the table organization when you file your number that you file at. So say I file at 90, keep it simple, and then you allow me to hire 1 more at 91. Well, they turn around because I may not know that grant till September, October. Then I'm at 91 now. Now I got to exceed whatever I'm exceeding. I can't put 1 for 1 and say, oh, I already hired that one. Okay.
We've always made our money in the fact of retirements that it's a banking,
Absolutely,
it's a bank, it's a
absolutely,
banking
yes.
bet on that.
The
So,
revolving door will help
revolving
you.
door was never,
Yeah.
we're never gonna get caught with.
Just timing. Yep.
Anyone else?
Station 4, still out of, still being worked on, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
So what is that time? How long has it now been out of commission? Just out of
Way
curiosity?
too long.
That's 13 months?
Probably more than that.
Okay. And things have worked out okay?
No.
Things have not worked out okay? As
It's
far
very
as,
slow progress. I would have liked to be
No, no,
back
I'm
in
not
there in
talking
6
about the-
months.
I'm
Firematic safety.
firematic and residents being protected and safety and timing and yeah, things have worked out great.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, we've been lucky.
Seems, that's every day, unfortunately, in life.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have lucky we've not had, well, Mr. Solm's not here, right? He lives down on Riverview. Our response time to Riverview is
Cottage Place.
What?
Cottage
Or
Place.
Cottage.
Yeah.
Down at that end of town is astronomical now because that station is closed. You're adding 3 or 4 minutes.
So keep in mind, and one of the reasons, keep in mind, if this was a volunteer town, which I absolutely do not want it to be, because we paid to have
Absolutely.
it that 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, being a volunteer firefighter, 3 or 4 minutes, I'm lucky if I'm in my car to get there. So Teaneck, this fire department is priceless. It costs us money. We get the best service hands down. But it's the difference between what you're paying for the minutes, or when every minute counts. I mean, you're concerned about 3 minutes. People would die for a 3 minute.
Correct. I'm adding 3 minutes on top of the 3 minutes. So we're looking to get it to his house at 7, 8, 9 minutes. And that's maybe the average response time for a volunteer fire department. Correct. We're also severely underutilized. If you can ask most of our residents, they have no idea, because if you look at my table of organization, I don't have a public information officer. I don't have public education officers. We're all heavy on the response side. We have very little. I mean, we have a grant we got 20 years ago, digital fire extinguisher training. It would be a matter of that, having that officer train all the borough employees on how to use a fire extinguisher, train all senior groups, train religious organizations, but we just don't have the staffing or the personnel to be out there in the public that much. And we try really hard. We use a lot of, unfortunately, we use some overtime to do that occasionally, but not. And again, if someone's going to ask the question on overtime, 90% of our overtime is to fill those vacant spots on the apparatus every day.
Again, and that is, it seems like you've really kind of solved for some training requirements by doing a train the trainer scenario by utilizing in-house personnel. Do you see or foresee any other potential opportunities that might help, or in terms of being able to train someone in-house so that they can go out and provide either within your staff or even outside programs? Do you think that you have the manpower or the potential manpower to do that?
We currently do that, and then we pay them overtime to go to your Teaneck Day events, your street fair events, some community, some school events. We use some on-duty personnel when accessible and not, going to impact the run or response to go to a school event for education. So yes, we're doing that currently now, but I clearly think we're missing the mark on that.
If you were to speak to what would improve, what would you need to improve that? One more person, two more?
Ideally, possibly 4 officers, 4 lieutenants, that would be your lowest level officer we could put in place, working staff on a day-to-day basis, 4 days a week, 2 in public education, 1 for records management, information, and CAD, and then the other for safety. Those are the 3 areas that we struggle. The 3 of us, myself, my 1 deputy chief, and one training officer every day. That's who manages the second largest department of the town, the 3 of us on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else? No? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And just 1 or 2 quick things about the fire. Well, not only are the fires that they respond to, but they certainly respond to quite a few EMS calls, and they supplement TVAC as well. We have quite a few EMTs with the fire department. They do a fantastic job when TVAC has to, we call it plectron call, where there's not staff readily available. The fire department will go out and be the first responders. So they keep very busy. And one of the things Chief and I spoke about briefly is there are 3 lieutenants in fire prevention.
Correct.
3 in fire prevention. I am not the fire professional, but I think that we really need to look into reducing that and have 3 civilian fire inspectors part-time, and put those 2 lieutenants back out on the line, or for whatever services that the fire chief. And so we spoke about that a little bit, but that's certainly not something that's going to be doable this year. But again, we're blessed to have a career fire department that, again, you're going to have the truck at your door generally in 3 to 4 minutes. Station 4 area maybe a little bit longer, but They're finishing up the roof, Station 4, the windows. So the project's moving along, not as quick as we wanted, but it should get done, I'm hoping, within the next several months. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next up is the library, right?
Yes, we have Shanae on here tonight. Hi, Shanae. So I'll go over a quick couple things with the library. They are budget number 390. You'll find them on page 132 of the budget book. And just to go over some of the numbers for council, in 2023, we budgeted $496,495 in their operations budget. This year, I'm recommending to council $507,220. That's an increase of $10,725 or 2.16%. There were a couple sub-accounts that went up noticeably. Not too bad, but you'll see one that went up 8,000 and change, one 5,000, one 300. And I'll let Shanae just discuss a few things about that. And I just want to let council know that in capital for 2024, there's another 500,000 in capital for interior renovations for the library as well. So Shanae, you want to speak a little bit about your budget and the services?
So my primary goal for the budget is to provide top-notch collections and programs that truly serve our diverse needs and interests for our community members. So material budget was actually cut a lot last year. It was cut $17,000. A lot of the cut came from reference resources. We cut 7,000 in that line last year. So this year, I'm just trying to restore a little bit. I found that it kind of limits our ability to explore different databases and other more quality resources. Those come when I get estimates from the vendors. They always look at potential user numbers, and our community population is high compared to other libraries. So we always getting a little bit higher estimates than other community sizes. So that is the reason. And I want to explain why it looks high, but you look at the telephone line, it's going down significantly. The reason it's going down is that hotspot, which is for circulation. It's basically our residents can check out hotspot Wi-Fi. We have 15 of them for circulation, and that was categorized before in telephone line. So I am taking that one out and putting in the material line. So when you look at the $8,000, that's actually recategorization of that $6,600. The true increase is about $2,000 to me, which is not huge. One thing I want to mention about our material is that our digital resources demand is very high, and it's not a cheap resources because the newer cars are eliminating all the CD players. People are using a lot of e-audiobooks. And last year, we saw 25% increase in our circulation for e-audiobooks, and the price is outrageous. For one copy, which sometimes comes with a meter use, is 24 checkouts or 2-year circulations. We have to pay either $75 sometimes over $100. So which we're trying to manage it, but our community members are huge readers. So to meet the demand, we buy extra copies, but when that gets used, 24 checkouts are used, we have to repurchase it. It's a copyright issue. We're trying to address it with the New Jersey representatives. It's a nationwide issue as well for the libraries. It's very difficult to manage the demand right now. So I am actually increasing that e-content line by $2,000. Other line is that equipment and contract service. Buckles is our big helper. We're part of Buckles, and our residents are using a lot in reciprocal borrowing. And I think last year our residents borrowed 27,000 items from other libraries. So this year their fee is going up about 2%. So we're paying over $72,000 to Buckles only. And this line also include book processing fees, also other softwares for us to manage PC reservations, e-commerce as well. Another line that's seeing 3,000 increase is programming line. Last year, luckily, we were able to receive Bergen County Arts Grant. We received $5,100, and we were able to add additional programs, morning programs and evening programs. This year, we are not getting that one. So thankfully, the Friends of the Library is giving us some funding to offer Friday morning programs. We call it now Friends Friday programs, but program is a big new things that puts our communities together. It's a free program for anybody who wants to register. Due to high demand, we are actually limiting to our TNAC residents only. We are doing mahjong programs, canasta programs. We do a lot of watercolor, ceramic programs, jewelry making programs. It's always booked, it's full. We do a lot of programs trying to bring the community together. We're doing speed friending program. We're probably gonna do it every other month. And this year we're actually looking to add a new program called the Virtual Bestseller Author Talks through Library Speakers Consortium, and it's based on active library users. So that's gonna cost us $3,500. So that's about it.
Can you just update us on the status of the renovation?
Renovation, I just had a meeting last week with the architect. The rendering will be done hopefully by the end of this month. And then I'm planning to schedule a public information session and for the council members as well.
So I'm working very hard with Shanae. In fact, yesterday, I had Shanae in my office with the administrator from Leonia, Leonia's library director, and we're talking about ways that we can collaborate together when our library goes offline. So I think this is going to work out for us better than having trailers here. There's a lot of details to this that we're working out, but Leonia has been very receptive of accommodating TNEC, and we certainly will help them out as well. There will be some sort of shared service agreement fee. We don't know what that is yet. We're working on that, but that's a very important number to have before this budget is introduced. So we're hoping to have really, I guess, the final number sometime next week, I believe, and this way I can present it to the council. But I think this would be a good option for us, where our residents can go to the Leonia Library, use their resources, get their library card, get their books through the Buckle system without really any interruption of service. Yes, a little bit of an inconvenience driving to that location, but it's a short period of time before the renovations are done, which should be roughly 9 to 12 months tonight.
Correct.
So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Shanae. Anybody have any questions? Ms. Belcher?
I just want to say thank you, Shanae, for all that you do. Library's just been great example in February with the Black History Month event, which was very well attended. Thank you for all that you do. I just had a question about the potential alignment with the Leonia Library. Would that just be for residents to check out books only, or would a resident be able to go in and sit down if someone needed to study? They could use the facility.
So public library is open to anyone. Anybody can go into any library. They can sit, utilize their building. So I don't see why not.
Anybody else? Deputy Mayor G.
Yeah, so during the Senior Citizens Advisory Board meeting today, one of the questions that came up was when can we, and maybe this is more of a question for Dean, but the bathrooms downstairs, I know we've all seen them, they're dated, they need updating. What's the timeline for addressing those?
So this renovation doesn't include any updates in that bathroom.
Yeah.
We are actually planning to add a bathroom on the main level, right next to the elevator. That's gonna be a public bathroom. So once we have a working bathroom on the main level, my goal is to finish this renovation, and down the road, I want to apply for other grant to renovate that bathroom to be ADA compliant.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
On the, one of the sub-accounts for the library repairs and maintenance, you're asking for an increase. It's small, it's only $1,000, just want to make sure that, so it says it's due to safety repairs and HVAC. Is that going to be fixed with the renovations?
No,
Some-
no, it's just the maintenance of our existing HVAC unit. It's aging. It's, I think, about 15 years old unit. So every time there is a pressure tank has to be replaced, it's not cheap replacement. It's quite expensive. So I just wanted to have some cushion because I already signed the quotes. That's gonna be costing over $4,000 for the replacement of a part.
Oh, no, I understand that. I just wanted to understand if that was going to be part of anything that would be fixed in the renovation or not. So it doesn't sound like it. Okay. And you said the HVAC unit is 15 years old?
I think so.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
During the renovation, I know the programming is fantastic and the Friends of the Library programming is fantastic. Will we be able to utilize Rhoda Center, MP1 or MP2 to continue some of the programming? Is that something we're going to put on the side for now, or we're still planning on using that budget and going ahead with things?
I mean, I'll leave that up to Sinead to coordinate with Glenna, and, you know, we're open to anything. I really want to continue without, really without any interruptions. So a lot of the service so that's fine.
I don't have answer to that right now. My goal is to figure out an option for temporary location. Once it's secured, I want to look for different ideas for programming as well.
Anybody else have any questions on council? No? Thank you, Sinead. We appreciate you so much. Next up is legal, right, Dean?
Yes, the
Mr.
last
Salmon.
budget for the night is legal.
That's
Our
the only one
township
that went
attorney,
down, right?
Scott Salmon, yes. How about that? Yes. All right, so council, you can find the legal budget on page 40 of your budget book. It's budget number 155. Here tonight again is our town attorney, Scott Salmon, and just quickly, 2023, council adopted $1,072,000 for the legal budget. This year, Mr. Salmon is asking for $977,000. That's down about 95,000 or 8.86%. There's several different categories, which I'll let Mr. Salmon explain to everyone, and why he's asking for what he's asking this year. Scott?
Okay, thank you. Good
Dean.
evening, everyone. What's that?
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I am here on behalf of everyone's favorite group of people, the lawyers. The township's legal department comprises of lawyers that serve the township, the planning board, the zoning board, the environmental commission, the historic preservation commission. We also have a labor attorney, redevelopment attorney, cannabis attorney, tax appeals attorney. We have municipal prosecutors. We have a public defender. We serve the township in a number of different ways. We attend meetings of the governing body and other boards and commissions. We render advisory opinions and give legal advice to our elected officials and the township employees, and we help facilitate the township's regular business, including drafting contracts and local ordinances. We also review all zoning and redevelopment matters that go to the township and advise on issues related to those applications. Litigation is by far the largest component of both our budget and our operations. We are litigating about 20 ongoing lawsuits in both state and federal court at any given time. We have multiple employee disciplinary matters, more than a dozen workers' compensation matters, and we have more than 100 ongoing tax appeals, which we are expecting to increase with the revaluation. In the past 10 months, since I became the township attorney, we have continued to significantly reduce the township's legal fees and are instituting new policies that will continue to decrease costs to the township. I had to pull some numbers, and so in the past 10 months, between my office, the township attorney, as well as labor and tax appeal, we have incurred or spent about $551,000, or almost $552,000. In the 10 preceding months before that, we spent about $820,000, or almost $821,000 on those same things. So in those last 2 months, the township has saved almost $269,000 in legal fees just from those three components since I started. We have resolved a number of longstanding lawsuits, including most notably the one with Holy Name Hospital. We have almost completely eliminated the Oprah backlog through coordination with the township clerk's office to create new procedures to address the many requests that we get every single day. I think Doug told me that we usually get about 30, 40 or so a week, and we've cut the backlog by more than half, and or just start keeping up with the ones that we get in. So going forward, our primary goal is to continue to reduce fees while at the same time maintaining the same quality of the legal advice that you guys, I think, are getting now. There are several big initiatives that we anticipate assisting with the township with in 2024, 2025, including we have to finish recodifying the township charter, the forthcoming tax bills reevaluation, and the master plan review. Which brings us to the budget and how much money we need to do all those things. As Dean mentioned, last year we had asked for and received $1,072,000. This year we were asking for $977,000, which is $95,000 less. It was important to us to get that budget under $1 million, and frankly, I think this number is probably higher than I think it's going to be at the end of the year. But we want to make sure that we do just have the resources just in case we need them. This next, one of our biggest goals here in doing this budget was to increase the transparency and make this the budget more understandable by restructuring how things were budgeted. Previously, primarily because we really had one law firm that was handling most of the legal matters for the township. A lot of things sort of got mixed together, and I think it was a little harder to tell or to really separate, how much we were spending on different things. And so what we did here in this budget, and we can go through it, is some of these items are obviously self-explanatory, like the public defender. No, it doesn't need much explanation. The sub-account for labor council negotiations and personnel, that is being solely attributed to the Wiener Law Group. The legal fees and expenses section is just for me and for my law firm, for our retainer, as well as all the money that we incur defending the township in all the lawsuits that we're involved in. The planning, land use, and COA sub-account there is for, I believe, for Phillips Rice, as well as our Affordable Housing Council. There's also a sub thing in there for Mike Ash, Carlin Ward for redevelopment. Although I mentioned the new policies that we are introducing, that was one of the things that the council voted on at our recent meeting, was our new escrow ordinance, which is going to significantly reduce the amount of money that I think we're going to be spending on redevelopment. The next section, insurance, that I think was previously used for a couple of different things, but going forward, it is going to be explicitly or exclusively used for the money that goes towards settling the different lawsuits that we are involved in. It just keeping cold insurance because I think that's just what it's named in the system, but it's really going to be money used to settle lawsuits. What else? We created the sub account for cannabis, which obviously is self-explanatory, and for the tax appeals and legal fees that will also only be attributed to the Wiener Law Group. We previously had an account for Oprah, but because that has been folded into what my firm charges as our flat fee retainer, we didn't believe that was necessary to include that. So we came up with, the way we came up with our numbers was primarily looking at how much we've, spent over the last few years, prorating it, looking out, projecting out to the remainder of the year, and looking to see if there are any upcoming major things that were gonna affect our, what we're gonna be doing. We've spent less on things like tax bills, for example, but we know we're gonna be spending more, going forward just because of the reval, just the way it works. So we decided to keep that the same. I mean, I guess that's it, I suppose, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Salmon. Does anyone on council have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to know about our GIF. Is that something that you think that we should be exploring an alternative to? Is that high for us? What's your opinion on our GIF?
So the contract with the JIP is up the end of 2024. I've already spoke to our risk provider. We will be shopping around. But again, the cost for any insurance fund is high right now. So we will do our due diligence. And if we can find another JIP insurance fund that is to our benefit, we'll certainly explore it. But the contract expires the end of 2024. So we'll be shopping around probably sometime this summer.
Anyone else on council? Deputy Mayor Katz?
Only because you mentioned it, are you allowed to say, or do you want to keep it for closed session, what the status is with the Holy Name settlement?
I can just. say
I thought that we did settle it, but then I heard maybe we.
Well, there were a couple, the case is settled, but there are, a couple threads that are left as to effectuate the settlement. So for example, we need to, accept a deed having to do with, vacating Chadwick Road. That is, I think the council is probably looking at that at the next meeting. That was just part of the settlement. And so we're gonna have, that's just something that we're gonna have to do to follow up on that. And so the resolution, I think, will be ready for the next one, or the next meeting. And I think there are a couple of deeds that have to be recorded alongside that. And there's a developer's agreement that we're just hammering out the final terms on. So those are, I'll say, part of our obligations under the settlement agreement, but the settlement agreement itself is done. But
Got it.
I'm gonna say the settlement itself is done, but there are things we have to do from the settlement that are still ongoing. But I would say we should be completely done with all those things within the next month.
Done. Okay, thank you. Nice work on that, by the way.
Mr. Mayor, two more questions,
Wait,
actually.
sorry, Ms. Belcher.
yeah,
Wait,
Mike,
first, sorry.
My question, Scott, is as it pertains to your sub-account number 240 on COA. In light of the fact that we have the affordable housing bill that's coming down the pike, we're looking at a new round at the end of this year. Do you feel that we're adequately prepared resource-wise to address affordable housing?
Yeah, I'll say yes, because I think I think what we've incurred before has been, I think, a lot less. There's you see there's a lot much higher number here that was listed in what we spent from 2023. I think that was for, I'll say, other things, just because of the way that that account was being used before. But I think 40,000 is more than sufficient to be able to handle all that stuff. Yeah.
I mean by that is basically looking at an analysis of if we have to defend ourselves or defend our record, or to, look at any type of analysis that might, require another person doing those types of services.
Sure. Well, so much of that would come from our planner and Frank Piazza as well, who's our consultant. That'll come from them. It'll also come from myself, and so that part of what my involvement in that would be budgeted, is budgeted separately within the sub-account 230. So it's not. I don't know that you could totally look at it just being under that one account, because my part of it is in a different account. But no, I think I don't expect us to need to bring in anyone extra that we don't already have.
Okay, and my last question is, in light of the fact that we've passed laws, and just this past Tuesday, pretty much putting the onus on the developer to incur additional costs, in your opinion, what COA costs would a developer potentially incur?
Well, maybe I'm not sure. I'm not sure what your question is. Would you,
What I'm saying is that if we're basically saying the developer has a certain responsibility now to manage affordable housing. Do you foresee any things that the township used to incur in terms of doing that is now being borne by the developer?
yeah, so and that's exactly what was the goal of the escrow ordinance that the council just adopted. So there are lots of costs associated with development that normally are paid for by the township. So for example, every time Mike Ash is going to look at a redevelopment agreement or something like, or a financial agreement or anything like that, it's really work that's being done for the benefit of the developer. And there's no real reason for the township to have been, to be paying them for that. And so with the new escrow ordinance, all those costs are going to be paid for by the developers. And so, whatever we had been spending before, or we were spending before on that stuff, will no longer be on our books. They'll be totally paid for by them. So that will definitely bring us, I think, significant savings, especially as depending on what our number is from our affordable housing obligation. If we have to do create more affordable housing units, then whatever that number, however many that is, any increase in work will just it'll come from the developers.
Ms. Goldberg?
Yeah, I had two other questions. One on tax appeals. Did you see any increase this year for last year, and do you anticipate anything next year that we should be reserving for with any large tax appeal lawsuits potentially?
So, well, we were on track to go down in our number. I think the 2023 spend was about 40,000. We asked for 60,000 to account for that increased number. Let me see if we got can add. Sorry, 1 second. No, sorry. No, I don't. Never mind. I thought I had more accurate or different numbers, but I don't. So we try to account for the increase in the rebound number by increasing what we spent last year from 40,000 to 60,000, just to try and cover whatever that increased number is.
Okay, and is there any reserve amount that we should anticipate for anything? Any large issues with that?
Yeah, you mean just money?
Settlements, any settlements that we would need to have a large reserve for potentially?
There are, well, the ones that are particularly large would come from the Jeff. So I don't think we need to necessarily budget for those. Those are kind of, say, those kinds of settlements are much larger than our budget could handle. So that stuff would is not really paid for by the township directly. I think right now, I think we included in here 250,000 for settlements, given 20 cases we have now, and I think that's a good number that going forward that we're going to have. I think this more than covers it.
And then just one more.
I'm sorry. Anything that would any settlement large enough that would be a problem for us would also be large enough to just be paid for by the Jeff. That's what I think of it.
Okay. And then just one more question on the prosecutor and public defenders. I noticed that they went up. Was that a contract? What was that related to?
So, well, for the prosecutors at the beginning of this year, the council increased the amount that the prosecutors were being paid from, I believe it was 200 a session to 300 a session, because I think they hadn't received an increase in a long time. And we also ask a lot of them. And so that increase, I think, was what affected the increase that we budgeted for the prosecutors. The public defender, I think that we just kept that the same. It was hard for us to tell if there'd be anything different, so we just kept it the same as what we've requested before in the past.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Your prosecutor, I'm sorry, the public defender remained flat. Prosecutors, the three of them that we have, they have not seen a rate increase in quite some time. Probably they were at the bottom of the pay scale for municipal prosecutors, so we went from 250 to 350 per session.
Right. I will say that one of the prosecutors, I'm not going to name names, called me after and was, I think, near tears and enjoy it finally getting this, I think, a raise that they've been looking for a while. So, yeah.
Anybody else on council have any questions for Mr. Salmon?
Just to say thank you, Scott. You didn't do an initial presentation last week, so we didn't get to thank you, but thank you, Scott.
Okay,
He
Thank
said he
you,
wants a
Mr.
selfie
Salmon.
also.
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, Dean, we're good to go to the next order of business, or is there anything
Yeah,
to say?
just with the budget, Mayor, I think, between, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, or even Thursday, I strongly recommend that the budget subcommittee get together and really to discuss, some of these issues and, to come back to council. And, there's some tough decisions to be made, and, but I would like to really sit down with the subcommittee and just to go over some of these things.
All right, thank you. Our next order of business is resolutions. Mr. Clerk, do you have to read the titles into the record, or can I just make a motion to approve them? So I make a motion to approve both resolutions.
Second.
All good. We're versatile. That was a first from Mayor Pagan, a second from, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor G for the two resolutions this evening. Councilman Schwartz. Councilwoman Belcher.
Yes.
Councilwoman Goldberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Morgan.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Deputy Mayor G.
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes.
All adopted.
And Deputy Mayor G, you just said you wanted to bring something up?
Yes. So on Tuesday, we started a discussion about the leadership TNEC agenda. I think there were some concerns about some of the items on the agenda and specifically who would be leading those items. And so I would like to offer some alternate solutions for the council to discuss. Specifically, it seems like there were some concerns about a member of council giving the overview on the advisory boards. And so I would like to offer that either we have the chairs give the overview, or either the town manager or the town clerk, if that would be preferable to all. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up that I forgot to bring up on Tuesday is one of the things that Dean and I had discussed was providing a very brief overview on what are the requirements to run for local office. I had volunteered to give that overview, but again, if there's a problem with that, would be open to suggestions for someone else to do that. So at the end of the day, I would have preferred for us not to micromanage this agenda, but at the end of the day, I want this program to happen on April 1st. And if that's the only thing holding it back from proceeding, I am happy to, go with wherever the majority of the council would like to go.
Thoughts? Comments, questions?
I would just say in terms of, just in the interest of trying to find common ground, because our clerk is kind of overseeing elections, perhaps he would be a good point person to speak about any types of requirements, compliance. Okay, no, you're speaking, the Board of Ed, right, okay. So is there a
So,
Board of Ed czar that we
yes,
could
we're looking
reach
for
out to?
compromise, which is good. Ms. Organ, you were going to raise your hand?
Did anybody reach out to maybe Mayor Dunleavy or a former mayor who's done this, who's no longer political, just to get some input?
We also have a question. I mean, you can respond if you want, but we also have a question from Deputy Mayor Katz. Do you want to go first?
No, I don't have a question.
Deputy Mayor Katz?
So I just got back from Panama. I had an amazing business trip and I took my son and a friend, and so I got to add a little family action as well. But with that said, I also enjoyed my favorite television show on Tuesday night on YouTube. I couldn't get into the regular channel because it was 523 people that were online. So I got to watch it in YouTube, and I know I saw this conversation. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form going to infuse myself and step in anything. But I will tell you this as a couple of things, observations from previous events as far as previous leadership TNEC. And I've had conversations with several of you. It is a very tiring, an amazing class, by the way, really informative. And I'll tell you that a lot of our new elected officials and new active residents actually were born out of that class. Some good, some bad. So with that said, having more than just one person shepherd this responsibility is actually a positive. And I know that some people were concerned with some, one person. So my suggestion would be that we actually ask whoever may be interested from the council. And yes, it is political, but I know that a lot of people, we're politicians, even though some people don't want to have that moniker named after them, would be to maybe 2 or 3 people to step up and try to split this amazing class so that it doesn't sound or feel like one person is taking on the class, and B, we can really give the best, and I think ultimately this is what we're looking for, the best results and best product to our residents and to our future leaders. And the idea with Mayor Dunleavy is also an amazing idea, bring in some of the former mayors that are currently higher medicated after they left mayorship. That would be a great addition. Why not to be the mayor? So that's my suggestion.
Is-
Kind
is-
of.
Is this for the managers? We have to do this in April 1st, or this should be done
But I
later?
also think, listen, I know, we also were dropped a little bit of a surprise, not a surprise, but I guess we're all still trying to grapple with the news that we heard about, our manager retiring. And I'm not sure that, to throw a 12-week, is 12-week or something like that class on him when he's about to retire is like, he may retire faster.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to
So
get.
that's just my suggestion. I'm just trying to come up with a compromise. I do feel that anyone who should be or wants to be part of this process, it's only to the benefit of the residents and should be part of it. That's my suggestion.
Ms. Belcher.
I think in the interest of seeing the fact that this is an initiative that Dean has worked very diligently on, taking into account, the dates have been aligned from April to the end of June, which kind of makes sense because you figure most people are going on vacation after June. So nothing's happening like July and August and even in September because people are getting their kids back to school. I kind of believe that it was an ideal 10-week period. I think that it seems like from all indication, Deputy Mayor G and the town manager worked to put everything in place, speakers, curriculum, dates, locations, that I'm fine with that. I think the sticking point right now is it sounds like you guys don't want Deputy Mayor G to be involved in terms of spearheading or speaking. So if it's if for the interest of seeing this program get off the ground and really be presented, I would agree that perhaps we could find some common ground in speakers. Perhaps we could, in fact, reach out to former mayors that still have a heart for our town and would want to contribute. But I really, really believe that we've been talking about this for a long time. I think the residents want to see it. I think our town manager, this would be a great initiative that he finishes his time with our township on. So I would vote tonight to move forward with the dates and times.
Of course we can, absolutely. Because I know we all just want to see this succeed. So
Dean, now you could say no because there's nothing they could do to you.
It's, I will say that, FDU really has rolled out the red carpet for us, and they've secured a room at the Muscarelli Hall. We do have speakers in place. I think there may be 1 or 2 that have not committed yet. I do think Mayor Dunleavy, former Mayor Dunleavy would be a good option choice for advisory boards to really speak about as well. So everything right now is in place. We have about 54, 55 candidates that are interested, which is a smaller group than I anticipated. So it is manageable.
55 people?
Yeah.
That's small?
yeah, it used to be bigger.
No way.
No, it actually used to be smaller, but
Much
this room is
smaller.
this room is a lecture hall. So it does hold up to 100. So 55 is, is manageable. We do have some good speakers lined up that have committed. So if we need to, I guess, move forward with the program, we can. The only question to me is cost, refreshments. I know FDU is taking care of refreshments the first night. If we do refreshments, the remaining 9 weeks, we have to go through their vendor, Aramark. And it would just be really coffee, tea, and cookies. And have to pull it probably from the council special projects.
My only feedback is I'm fine with it moving forward for the April 1st date. I just asked, I don't think any current council members should be teaching any of the classes, nor do I think that there should be a class on running for office. Everything else was fine.
Well, at least this conversation tonight is way more pleasant than the one we had a couple nights ago.
Well, we were talking about refreshments.
I know, but it's going a lot more pleasantly. Anyone else?
Can we take a straw poll on a couple of, or I don't even know if that's the right term. Because different people have said different things. There have been different suggestions. Can we go by one and like see if we have 4 nodding heads on each one?
I'll make a suggestion.
So
I make the suggestion that whichever council members want to be involved, let them shepherd X amount of days. And we can publicize that they're going to be there as far as the shepherding and managing so that we can reduce the pressure on the manager. That's my first suggestion. And then as far as the conversation, we can talk about that next. But do we have any council members that want to be involved?
I'm okay with that.
You can put me down as not going to be there. I'm just wanting so that make things easier for everyone.
Yeah, and if there's anything I can do, it's always.
So just a listening check.
That's my line.
The proposal is involve as many council
The
members.
proposal is, just so I can clarify my listening check, comment is, any council members that want to be involved, like, let them speak now, and then you could break it up privately of, okay, you wanted to be involved, can you take these 2 days? You want to be involved, can throw their pictures up and send it out.
Can we just see a show of hands who would support that idea?
Okay with that.
So just to be clear, the roles are, that's just to preside over, introduce the
That's
speaker?
First, then we got to get into the
Okay,
specific
so fine.
what happens at the event.
The second question I had
You're
is
saying like a host.
A host,
Like an MC.
hosted by council member. whoever.
so historically, there's been one host for this thing, but we're saying this time we're gonna open up.
Breaking from
Okay,
history.
just, I know, because last week, a lot of people, or 2 days ago, people were very upset about changes from history, so I just want to make sure people are okay with it now.
I'm okay with it. I wasn't there.
The second question I had was, okay, so the advisory boards, I had suggested either the chairs give an overview on the advisory boards or Dean or Doug. So I'm just gonna go one by one. Are people okay with the chairs doing it? No,
So what was it?
no, okay. Who, are people okay with Dean? Oh, go ahead.
The reason is just, I don't know that they have the knowledge. They know their board, but they don't necessarily know all.
Okay. Are people okay with Dean doing it? Are people okay with Doug doing it?
I,
Okay,
looks
so
like- it
can we
looks like
figure
Doug
that
won.
off? Can we figure that up offline?
It
But
sounds like
one of the
Doug
two.
won.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Are people okay with telling people what are the checklist items to run for office? Not campaign strategies, but like you have to get 15 signatures and do this or whatever. Yes, they're like checklists, not.
No.
If live in Teaneck for a year.
So 1, 2, 3. Is anyone else okay with that? 4. So there's 4 nodding heads on that. So we can include that in the agenda. Just, and who would, can that be a council member or does it have to
No.
be Doug?
No council member.
I think Mayor Dunleavy would be nice, or Paul Ostrow, Jackie Cates, who
Paul
else?
Os-
Kiwi Fight. We have a lot of,
That's a great idea.
And if none of them are available, Doug?
Doug.
I mean, he runs the elections.
is Jackie scheduled to do any of them?
Yes, it was Jack.
Didn't she want to do something with form of government?
Yes, she could do
I will
something.
follow up and make sure that she has a role if everyone's okay with that.
That's great.
Can you make sure that the whole subcommittee is CC'd on that, please?
Sure.
Sounds like we're making a lot of progress. This is beautiful.
That's it.
Anybody else got anything they want to say about any topic? In that case, I make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Second.
Aye. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to everyone on staff, Dean, Issa, Tom, Doug. Thank you to all our department heads. Thank you so much. And we hope you all have a good evening. Good night.
All right.